The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello everybody, hopefully you can hear me. It's Ian Margerison here with Clear Insight, and thank you for joining our webinar today. We have a great group of quite a few people joining the webinar today and others still coming in. We'll just give it maybe about 20 seconds or 30 seconds, and then we will get started with the webinar. All right. Well, let's get started as others are joining. We've got a full agenda packed for our hour together. We're glad to have you here. And just to make sure you are indeed on the right webinar, it's Clear Insight, and this is on automated financial statements and disclosure management. And we're glad to have you along. And we've got an action-packed agenda. So just while we speak of agenda, we'll move towards the agenda. And so what we're going to cover today, more or less with these time breakdowns, is we're going to take you through just kind of introduction and objectives that we're going to cover today. Then primarily for those on the call today who are as yet not using a specific automated process for financial statement reporting and for disclosure management, we'll just kind of talk about that state for a few minutes, and then we will go into introducing Cognos Disclosure Management. We'll specifically spend some time, because we know many of you on the call are current users of the Cognos or Clarity FSR product, so we will spend quite a bit of time comparing the two for you, and then we will be going into a demo, talk for a few minutes about licensing of Cognos Disclosure Management, and then hopefully we have a good bit of time left for Q&A and wrap up. So just so you know who's with us today from Clear Insight, there is, of course, myself. We also have Linda with us, who is spent many years implementing FSR in client engagements. And so we're very glad to have Linda with us, and she really will be carrying the lion's share of introducing CDM to you and also doing the demo. We also have Susan with us, and Susan will be helping coordinate our Q&A and the polls that we're going to do as we move through the program. So I should just say at this point, actually, we are happy to take questions. And I'm not quite sure on your screen if it shows up as chat or questions, but either one of those, you should be able to enter in your questions there, send them to Susan, and she will collect those questions in time for our Q&A at the end. So we'd encourage you to have questions as we go through. So for those of you who, many of you actually on the call we already know and we work with, but there's a lot on the call and others that may not know who we are. So Clear Insight, we are an advanced IBM business partner. We are focused on the Office of Finance. So our focus is pretty direct in that we work with the IBM solutions of TM1 and Clarity, FSR, Cognos Disclosure Management, and really driving value in the Office of Finance. We support clients around the world with probably a key focus in North America in a number of industry verticals identified there right now. So just to kind of get the status of folks that we have with us on the call right now, we'd like to start with a couple of little audience polls to get you engaged so that you can answer some questions, and we'll have a couple of these as we go through the webinar. It's also interesting for you to see who else is on the call and what's happening. So two questions will be popping up here. The first one is, how is financial statement reporting and disclosure management currently done in your environment? And so there'll be a number of answers. Pick the most exact answer of how you are currently doing that. And then the next question we're going to look at is, with respect to that reporting, is do you require or are you currently using XBRL and or the Edgar functionality? So I'll ask Susan to turn on the first poll for us now. And we'll get you to put your answers into that poll there. All right, very good. I think most of you have put in. Let's close the poll, Susan. And very interesting, you will see there, as we figured, the majority of you, vast majority of you, are currently using FSR, and that's what we thought. And just a few of you are using, doing the manual process, and there's a couple of you who are already using CDM. So that's great. We'll be anxious when we come to the Q&A. For those of you who are already on CDM, be interested to hear your thoughts at the end as well. Okay, good. So that's very helpful to us as we go through to know that, and we really have structured this webinar primarily for current FSR users, so that is great. Okay, Susan, can you open up the second question? And if you could answer in on that second question. Okay, very good, excellent, and thank you all for voting again. Susan, you can show the results of that poll, which is a little surprising to me. We did expect certainly that the majority of you would be using XBRL, but it's just about everybody is using XBRL right now. So that will lead into a good discussion around CDM for you as well. So 60% of you using it right now, probably within your FSR functionality, and then about 40% of you who have that outsourced right now. So we'll be able to talk to some of that. Okay, excellent, very good. So as we move forward then, just the objectives of this session, which I think fall in line with who we see from the polls, is we're going to learn about Cognos Disclosure Management, talk about the benefits of CDM and implementing it for those of you on XBRL and those who may or may not need it, and focus in on the differences between CDM and FSR. I think you will be quite excited as you see Linda go through the demo. Her demo is focused, for the most part, on demonstrating the differences and things that have been added into CDM. And for those of you that are longtime FSR users, I think you will get quite excited, as we were when we started working with CDM. And then, of course, the last thing, just a little commercial there, is to let you know that Clear Insight, as an expert in this space, would love to support you and help you in your journey and your transition to CDM and or to evaluate it further, and or, of course, to just help you with FSR. That's where we spend a lot of our time as well. Okay, so there isn't too many of you who are just doing the manual process, and hopefully these issues that come up with the manual process is not what you are experiencing. If you are experiencing some of these things and you're using FSR today, then there is room for improvement in your environment and things that could be addressed that we, of course, would be able to help you with and address with IBM if there are any of these things happening to you and you are using FSR. But as you know, if you came from this world or you are still in this world, it is a lot of work, takes a long time to manage your financial statement reporting, to do internal various types of reporting, board books, different elements of reporting that you're going to do. And if you're doing that manually, you're pulling data from your systems, you're putting them into Excel, you're rekeying your information in Excel, you're making edit changes, you're manually putting that information into Word, you are then having to do that all again at the end. There's issues that come up for concern. It's a concern that all you have, and is a concern of the CFO office, is when I have that kind of process, yes, I can get it done. It takes time, but I can do it. But it requires a tremendous attention to detail. And even with that, you can end up with mismatched numbers, sitting down at the table saying, well, that's not the numbers I have, that's not the numbers I have. And it can be very embarrassing and troublesome, and much more significant issues can arise from that, as you well know, especially if it gets into your SEC reporting and you report wrong numbers. So as you all will well know, this is a very important process. It's a key process within the Office of Finance, and it's key for your organization to get it right. And so that's where FSR and disclosure management have really come to the fore to help address these issues, to help with the automation of these issues, to, in the end, really help you gain back time, control, and confidence in your reporting processes. All right, let's just do one other poll. It's great having you all answer these. Two questions. What type of reporting do you currently do? And what do you know about CDM? The first one will be pick all that apply, so you can pick multiple items on this first question of the types of reports that you do. Susan, if you could open up that first poll there, that would be great. Go ahead and start your voting on that. Okay, we're almost all in. There's a couple of you who haven't voted yet, I think. Give it another couple of seconds. All right, Susan, if you want to close that. So this is good. This is probably about what we would have expected. Almost 100% of you, because so many of you are on FSR, you're using it for your external reporting, SEC reporting. You're using the XBRL components within that. 82% of you saying you're using it for financial statement reporting on its own. 20% on legal-related documentation. And so there's opportunity maybe for some of you, especially as you see CDM, it really can open up the efficiency and open up the capability and flexibility to make the effectiveness that you are finding for FSR in your external reporting, to leverage that in some of your more internal reporting needs. And many companies are really starting to use and looking at CDM as a way to help them drive efficiencies in other elements of the reporting cycle and other reports that have to be done on a regular basis, and Linda will be talking about that. Okay, so the next question, what do you know about Cognos Disclosure Management? So let's open that up, and then we'll move into the meat of the presentation after that. Okay, looking good. let's close that up, Susan, and we'll show what we have here. This is great news for the webinar. About 50% of you have only heard of it, and looks like there's about 25% of you there who know more about it and are already making plans to do a replacement. But what's that? 75% are learning about it for the first time or only heard about it. So this is exciting. You're the perfect audience for this, and we really hope that you get value as Linda takes us through this. So I'm going to turn it over to Linda now. Just go to the next slide, and Linda, if you want to take over and introduce our group to CDM.
Thank you, Ian. And thank you, everyone, for joining us on this webinar. So my name is Linda Igueno. I have implemented FSR for a number of years, and some of you on the call are actually the clients I implemented FSR in your environment. So what I'm going to do at the moment is just to walk you through what CDM is, some of the benefits of CDM. Then I'm going to compare CDM and FSR, and then go into a demo. So what is CDM? CDM stands for Cognos Disclosure Management. CDM is a reporting solution that helps automate and transform your reporting process. It also combines documents, content, and reporting management in a collaborative and secure environment. CDM and FSR were built on the same concept. For example, you still require variables to automate reports, and most of the variables remain the same. As Ian pointed out earlier, the reporting process for many organizations, probably not for a lot of people on this call, but for many organizations is still very manual. As a result of that, they are struggling with a lot of issues associated with the manual process. So CDM is a second-generation reporting solution designed to help transform this manual process into an automated process. So what are the benefits of CDM? So CDM helps to automate and transform your reporting process into a faster, more efficient, with more accurate and reliable data. It's easy to use because you're still leveraging Microsoft Excel, Word, and PowerPoint. These are tools that we are all familiar with. CDM encourages collaboration because team members are working within the same secure solution. This increases transparency and visibility for the report owner. Regarding audit trails, every change made within your report is tracked in CDM using the audit trail functionality from when a user logs in to when they exit the report. CDM integrates well with source data, removing the versioning-related issues that would normally occur when this does not, when you don't have this functionality. CDM supports output in Microsoft Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and PDF. So in the next slide, I will be highlighting some of the enhancements in CDM. So there are a number of functionalities that have changed or have been improved with CDM. So some of them have been listed on this slide, and I will just go through them very briefly before doing the demo. So there's the check-in, the check-out functionality. This ensures that the checkout and the check-in and the checkout functionality ensures that no two people have access to an object at the same time. Some of the functionalities that I've actually listed on this slide are based on, they're actually based on feedback we got from clients while I implemented FSR in North America. So many of the improved functionalities you see today in CDM are based on these feedbacks. So like I said, the check-in and the checkout functionality ensures that no two people have access to an object at the same time. With CDM, users can work on multiple objects at the same time, as opposed to FSR, where you could only work on one object at any given time. Objects can now inherit workflow from the report. For example, a 10K report or an annual report is created with a default workflow. Any object added to that report, to that 10K report or annual report, will automatically inherit the workflow from that report. Regarding PowerPoint functionality, the main difference is that PowerPoint functionality is now within CDM as opposed to FSR, where you had an input file outside of FSR and you had to export the data out of FSR into that input file outside of FSR to get your presentation generated. Chart functionalities have been improved in CDM because in FSR, the placeholders for your charts were invisible, while in CDM, it's very visible. This obviously removes the issue of unintentionally deleting a chart because you don't know there's a chart there, it's just invisible. So the data load functionality and security. CDM allows loading data to multiple database tabs instead of the just one database tab in FSR. In terms of security, CDM only recognizes and allows linking to data on an authorized server. CDM connects to more data sources than FSR did or does. So the improvement is reference variables. This improvement is that in CDM, reference variables are more complete than they were in FSR. Reference variables only showed your source and destination variables in FSR. In CDM, it's more complete. You get your validation variables and the rest of your object variables. I am now going to demo some of these improvements, improved functionalities on CDM. Okay, so this is the interface. This is CDM. We're currently in CDM. So for those who are not familiar with some of the terminologies of FSR because you haven't used FSR, not many of you on the call, but I'll still go through some of the terminologies. So in FSR, or in CDM, there are sections. So sections are high-level containers that house your report objects. For example, your folders on your desktop or your network. Objects are building blocks of your report. For example, your files. There are different types of objects. You've got the Word objects, the Excel objects, the PowerPoint objects, and these are the three main objects in CDM. Word objects are normally used for your comments and your narratives. Excel objects for your tables and your charts. PowerPoint objects are for your presentations. And then you have variables. So variables are special codes recognized in CDM and used to reference information from your data source. This automates your reports. So for example, on CDM, on the left side of this view, you can see these are sections. So like I said, they're like your folders. So within sections, you have objects, and these are objects. So that is a Word object, and that is an Excel object. And that would be a PowerPoint object. So I'm just going to walk through some of the functionalities I've already talked about. So the first one being the check-in, check-out functionality. So I'm just going to use one of these objects. I'm going to use one of these objects. As you can see, this object is currently checked in because it says it's checked in up here. To check this object out, all you have to do is click on this button up here, and it checks out the object. So the difference is when an object is checked out, it means this object is checked out for your use. It's in use, meaning that no two people can have access to this object until this object is checked in. Nobody else can work on the object. So for those with FSR, you know there was this issue where two people could be on the same object and they don't know it. And they're editing away, and maybe 1 hour later, one of them decides to save the object, and then they're thrown out of the system without saving. So they've just lost 1 hour worth of work. Well, in CDM, this functionality prevents it from happening. The second functionality that I want to talk about is opening multiple objects and working on multiple objects at the same time. This is already, I mean, for most of you who have FSR, you know this was impossible in FSR. In FSR, you could only open one object and work on that object at the same time, at any given time. So for this, I can open, as you can see up here, these tabs show you the number of objects that I have opened. So I've got 3 objects opened, and I can just add one more object. So I've got 4 objects open now. And as you can see, these objects are open. I can go into any of them, check them out, and I can work across. So for those updating their FSR, you know how difficult it is sometimes to copy variables from one object to another. Well, in CDM, it's very easy. You just copy, and you can copy blocks of data. For example, if this is your variables list, you can copy blocks of data into other objects very easily. So this obviously adds another flexibility to what CDM does for you. So there you go, and then you can have your compound Ds and then make all the comments that you would need with those. So this is, I mean, this is, for me, this is one of the best functionalities, changes that, I mean, there are others, obviously, but to me, because I build a lot of reports and I can also understand for people who update their reports, this will be an amazing functionality and an amazing addition to the process. This also is from client feedback, because when obviously having this issue where you have to click from one object to the other because you wanted to make changes was actually part of the feedback that we got from clients. So I can imagine a lot of clients are pretty happy to see that. The next functionality that I want to talk about is the workflow, improved workflow functionality. So what I'm going to do, in order to show this, I am going to add an object. To add an object, in fact, let me, because this wasn't part of what I was going to, it wasn't part of the list, but since I'm here, I will just add this on. In CDM, you can, in CDM, you can add objects at different levels. For example, I'll give you an example, comparing with FSR. In FSR, you could only add objects at the section level. So you could just go right-click on the section and add an object. In CDM, you can add objects at any level. I can add it at the object level, and I could just right-click, choose to add a sibling because I want them to be on the same, I want this object to be on the same level as the two other objects in that section. And I can just add the object. So I'll call the object test object. Okay. So by default, this is obviously an Excel object. So just like FSR, you have two tabs. Instead of the display, you have sheet 1 in CDM, but you still have your database tab. So, and by default, new objects come in as checked in objects. So in order to work on this object, I must check it out. And then now I can type in the object. So save the object. So once the object is saved, I'm sure all of you who use FSR now have noticed something. I was able to do this without actually, doing anything about workflow. Does it mean this object doesn't have a workflow? Of course it does. Without a workflow, you still cannot edit it. So I'm going to click on the workflow window so that you see that this object actually has a workflow. So there is a workflow. So there is obviously a workflow in there. So what happened? So what happened here is this report, when this report was created, and the report is called Q1 Internal Business Review, when it was created, a default workflow was associated with this report, so that every object that is created within the report inherits the workflow. So this obviously removes should I say, one stage in the process when you're building your report. So all you do now is just add your objects, check them out, and then start working on them. You also have the flexibility of, making changes to the workflow. So you're not stuck with this workflow, you can make changes. If for whatever reason you need to make a change to it. So I'll go into the database tab to illustrate the data load functionality. So for those that are not familiar with loading data in FSR or obviously CDM, loading data, when you load data in CDM, that data is connected to an external source data. So if you're using TM1, it's connected to TM1. If it's Clarity, it's connected to Clarity. So when if it's Excel, it's connected to Excel. So when those underlying data change, your reports automatically change. So the functionality that I just want to show you is loading data in CDM. So CDM has an added functionality where when you're loading data, you have the option to load the data on a separate tab. So you can also stack if you want, but you have that flexibility of loading your data in separate tabs. So in this case, I'm going to load an income statement. These are all Excel data, by the way. And I'll go next to that. So I have the option to insert this data into a separate worksheet, which is what I want to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to name the worksheet. So as always with best practice, you give it a sensible name. I'm just going to abbreviate that name. And finish. You can see the tab come in there. This is similar in a way to your block variables, only that this time this data is connected directly to your source data. So that gives you, I've got clients, some of my clients had, data pools from, like about 30 of them. And stacking 30 data pools in one database tab was just a lot of hassle, and because it was just too much information. So this functionality obviously cleans that up and makes it a lot easier, to access your data, to know which is which. I absolutely love this functionality because I know what it would do for a lot of clients. Now, I just want to add one extra thing. It's a minor change in CDM, but it's good. In FSR, if you were in your display, for example, and you wanted to load data, if you clicked on load data from within your display, an error message will pop up and say, well, you're not on the database tab, you need to go to the database tab in order to do that. Well, in CDM, the CDM is more intuitive, so it doesn't matter what tab you're in. Once you load data, so I could be in that tab, and I choose to load data. So this time I'm going to go for the gross margin, and I want it to go into the database tab. So what I'm going to do is, I don't want this anymore. I don't want it to be in a separate worksheet, so I'm going to uncheck that. And when I do, I'll finish that, and automatically it would load it in the database tab. So that is good. It's minor, but it's useful. So the next functionality that I want to talk about now is charts in CDM. So I'm going to use this object. So this object has 3 charts. So it's got the actual versus budget chart, the previous Q and current Q, and then it's got geographic analysis. Now, what has been done? I mean, anybody who has charts in their report already can see a difference, because in FSR, charts were brought in using bookmarks, and if this was FSR, you wouldn't even have anything here. So the chart will be there, but it will be invisible. Nobody knows there is a chart. So many people have the problem that they would delete their charts while doing some housekeeping before printing their report. And then they'll find out that all their charts are missing, and they're wondering, okay, I wonder who messed with my report. Well, obviously, the housekeeping, deleting all those spaces, deleted all the charts. Obviously, they've improved on this with CDM, where now you have placeholders. So CDM brings charts in using hyperlinks. So I'm just going to click on it. So I'm just going to click on it and just edit it, just to show you quickly. So this is the coding that brings it in. For those of you that have FSR, this isn't very difficult. It looks a bit challenging now, but when you've done your training, it's very easy. And then now you can give it, sensible names that indicates that there is a chart or a table coming in. So what I'll do for you is I will generate this object. I'll choose the format, Word format. Okay, so you can obviously see there are charts in there. Like I said, in FSR, the object itself would have had nothing, so it would have been very easy for you to delete it. So that, I think, is pretty nice. The next one, functionality that I will talk about, is the PowerPoint functionality. So PowerPoint, the main difference is that PowerPoint is now in-house. So I will just double-click on that to open it, so that you can see the PowerPoint object itself. So you can see we're using variables. For those that are not familiar, these are variables, report quarter and reporting year. So these are variables that have been used in this PowerPoint to automate the PowerPoint itself. And all this data are actually linked to a source. So when that source changes, this changes too. And this will bring in a table. So what I'm going to do, I know not many people use use PowerPoint within FSR, but this opens up obviously possibilities. So I'm just going to right-click to generate this object. And for PowerPoint objects, you must select the Microsoft PowerPoint format, or else you get an error. So now I'm just going to open that. Okay, so that is the report I just generated. So for those using PowerPoint, using PowerPoint within FSR, just gives you, a much cleaner, easier functionality. So you can see, for those that are not familiar with variables, that all those variables have been converted to their values. So like I said, this is how you convert your report, how you automate your report. Finally, I will just quickly show you the reference variables. So in FSR, if you go to Tools, Reference Variables, that will show you all the reference variables or all the variables you've used, object variables you've used in your report. While in CDM, it's a bit, it's the same thing. So your variables, obviously, it's a list of all your variables. It's the same thing, only that the variables are more complete in CDM. So I'm going to filter this so that we can see all the classes of variables that show up here. So there are 4 classes of variables actually here. So you've got your source variables and your destination variables, which is like FSR. But then you have the validation variables, compound Rs. You even have your print variables, RS and RE, and your image variables. So this is a more complete list than the list you had with FSR. So to summarize, CDM has been designed with the same concepts as FSR. So for those of you who already have FSR and have used it, the transition to CDM should be relatively easy. I'm talking about training here. CDM has been built to manage reporting in an enterprise scale. It works well for both internal and external reporting. CDM currently does not yet have EDGAR and XBRL functionalities, though it is hoped that this will be added in the next release of CDM this year. CDM has been incorporated with feedback from clients, which has helped to design a solution with increased flexibility, security, and more robust functionalities. I hope I have successfully made a case for CDM with this presentation and demo, and I do thank you all again for your time. I will hand this back to Ian to continue with the presentation. Thank you.
Excellent, Linda. Thank you very much. Great to be able to have you go through all that for the folks online, and knowing that most of you are indeed FSR users. You should have, there was probably some yeehaws as Linda mentioned in her thing coming from your audience as you saw some of those things. So I'm just going to take you through one slide about licensing, and then we will open it up for Q&A. So be sure to get your question and answers into Susan. So for CDM licensing, and specifically for those of you who are on FSR, anybody who doesn't have FSR, by all means reach out to me directly, and we can talk about what the licensing and costs are associated with it for you. But for those of you on FSR, IBM has made it very efficient and a clear process for you to transition from FSR to CDM. Both products are very much still, FSR is still very much alive in the marketplace, so there's no communication from IBM at all saying FSR is going away or anything like that. But definitely CDM is being promoted as the tool going forward. It's got additional functionality. It is designed, as Linda mentioned, and architected on a multi-server environment. So because of the TM1 type capabilities, it supports literally thousands of users versus what FSR did before under a much higher performing environment. You saw even from what Linda was doing on the demo, I think, how quickly it ran. So that's just a bit of background there of where it is. So if you are on FSR today, you have the option, and we're able to support you, Clear Insight, in transitioning your FSR licenses to CDM. It is actually, what happens is you, in essence, turn in your FSR license and are relicensed under CDM for the users that you have. You are able then to keep FSR alive and running in your environment for a period in general of up to about 12 months. And that parallel transition is really to help you with transitions. So you can convert your licenses, download, set up CDM, get it installed, set up your reports and structures, set up your environment, make sure it's all running the way you want it to run, and then you can weed out FSR. But you can run them in parallel. Now, Linda mentioned that there is no XBRL available in CDM today. No doubt that is one of the top things on the priority list for IBM and CDM. There hasn't been official communication yet as to when XBRL and EDGAR type capabilities will be available in it, but we do know that it's coming. So what IBM has said, for those of you, which is the vast majority on our call today, who are using XBRL, within FSR, you are able to convert your licenses to CDM, install CDM, get CDM up and running, keep FSR running in parallel, and you do not have that 12-month limit. You essentially can keep FSR running for your XBRL type reporting indefinitely until CDM has that functionality built in. Once CDM has the functionality built in, then there will be a transition period available as well to help support the transition of the XBRL functionality over to CDM. So what that means, for those of you on the call, most of you needing CDM, needing XBRL, it means that you can convert your licenses today. We can get CDM installed and up and running for all of those internal reports, board books, anything that does not require that XBRL functionality. We can begin to start using the CDM component tool for all of those reports. Just keep FSR there for the XBRL, SEC type reporting, and then once CDM gets the new functionality, then you can flip over the last bit. The idea, of course, is that you can leverage faster, more efficient products, and because of the ability to have so many more users on the product, it also supports a greater user base leveraging the product for reports that you might not have even thought of at this point. So that's the essence of the transition capability. The new licenses come in a server pack of 25 or less users or 25 or more users, with or without the TM1 functionality. So if you do not have TM1 and you want to leverage that as a data store, you can, there's a special TM1 option that comes with the licensing so that you can get that. The end user licenses then associated with it are come in 4 types: administrator, standard, reviewer, or data collector, collection style users. There's a highlight for you, an overview of the licensing. Let's now go to Q&A. I think our time is, how are we doing for time? We're just about right on time, so we do have a few minutes for Q&A. And hopefully you've been able to put questions into Susan. And maybe Susan, you could let us know what questions you have there.
Thank you, Ian. Yes, we did get some questions. The first couple all deal with the Edgar module. So I will read the questions, but it's probably not at this point able to answer them as specifically as the person would like to, but we can certainly get back to you with more detailed answers. But the first one is the ability in CDM to Edgarize PowerPoint documents. Linda, are you familiar if that's going to be possible?
Well, at the moment, we haven't got any answer. You just said that. I mean, I don't know. I know that in FSR you couldn't because the functionality was within FSR. However, it could Edgarize both the Word and Excel objects. So until we actually see the functionality within CDM, it would be premature to actually say it's going to do it or not. I can't guess because until I see it, I can't give a clear answer. It's something we can obviously go back to find out from IBM directly, see if they're thinking about this or if what they're Edgarizing solution, if it would have that functionality as well, so that it includes PowerPoint as well.
Thank you. So we definitely will not forget this question, and we will definitely get back to you as soon as we have an answer for that. The next question is, does CDM solve the formatting issues with FSR? Example, trying to fit objects in one page when generating reports and not having to stress about pixels.
You still need pixels in CDM. You still have to format your tables. CDM, like I said, second generation, it hasn't done everything that I would like to see. But in terms of pixels, you still need pixels. So, yeah.
Okay. The next question, do you need to check out an object in order to make edits to it?
Can you repeat that, please?
Do you need to check out an object to make edits?
Yes, you do. Yep.
How significant is the required conversion effort from FSR to CDM?
Okay. In terms of training, this, like I said, is the same concept. So people who have knowledge of FSR, it's not going to be difficult for you to pick up how to use CDM. However, when it comes to transitioning from, obviously, your objects in FSR to CDM, IBM has promised us a tool that we can use to do that. Now, until we have access, because the tool has not been released, until that has been released and we see what it does, then we can, of course, customize this to each and every client, because different clients have different.
I should mention that that tool is a tool that's available just to partners and to IBM, so I don't believe that tool will be available to individual clients, and that really just helps, to our knowledge, it helps with some of the minor movement of the objects from FSR to CDM and kind of speeds a bit of that process up, but it certainly doesn't do a straight conversion.
So Ian, this is a question for you. If not satisfied with CDM functionality, can we revert back to FSR?
Okay, well that's an interesting question. There is nothing in the licensing right now that makes room for that. So because the way the licensing works is I'm turning in my FSR licenses for CDM licenses, and there certainly is nothing formal with IBM where I can turn in my CDM licenses and go back to FSR. So there There is nothing formally that allows that to happen. Once you turn them in, you're moving to CDM. But you can certainly bet that IBM, and if we're working with you, then everything will be done to make sure that there isn't a need to do that. And as you could tell from Linda's kind of excitement in what she has seen in CDM and using it for a while now, we're quite optimistic that most, if not everybody who does transition from FSR to CDM will be very pleased with it, keeping in mind, of course, the missing functionality until it comes available in the new versions.
Okay, and a question for Linda. Does CDM allow the capability to repeat rows in Excel as opposed to FSR, in which you must create headers, etc.?
So does it repeat rows?
Yes, repeat rows.
Okay, the Excel functionality in CDM is practically the same as in FSR. There are a few differences. So if FSR didn't have that, CDM doesn't at the moment. So if, like I said, if FSR didn't have it, then CDM doesn't have it.
Okay.
Was there two parts to that question?
No.
Okay, that was it. Okay.
And for you, Ian, will IBM continue to support FSR through new version releases and improved functionality?
Yes, that is definitely the case in our understanding at this point. There's been no word of slacking off on FSR, as it were. So we do expect new versions of FSR to continue and to come out, but we also sense, and we see from working with IBM, that really their main focus is on CDM.
Okay, and this last question, I'm not quite sure what they're getting at, but how would XBRL fit in during the transition if someone did not want to run parallel? I think the answer to that is that if you don't want to run both at the same time, you would run FSR until XBRL was available.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct, yes.
Okay. If I haven't gotten that question right, please send me additional follow-up to that if that didn't answer your question. And Linda, there's a question here. Can you go over the additional variables again? Hashtag R, RS, RE, IRS, and IRE.
So you mean the reference variables?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm just trying to find. Okay. So these are the reference variables. I'm not quite sure what well, okay, you know what, let me do what I did before. I don't know if that would answer the question, because it wasn't very specific.
Perhaps if you could just tell people what they stand for as well.
Okay, oh, right, okay, so I can do that. So the pound S's are the source variables. So these are variables that actually define what you're trying to automate. So if values change regularly, for example, your revenue value changes from time, like monthly. You could put a variable there so that when the data changes, automatically will change in your report. So these are called source variables. They are used to define your variables, and they must be unique in the naming as well. Destination variables are variables that you actually use. So when you define a source variable, you use the pound Ds to apply them to your report. So if you wanted to talk about the variable, if you wanted to talk about variable in your narrative, you can say, revenue in your narrative, you can say, the revenue for the year was pound D, and then you put in that defined name that you gave it when you defined it with the #s. So D is your destination variables. The #rs this is your validation variable. So you use it to tick and tie values so that your values due to rounding issues, you don't have any issue. If any of your values are off due to rounding issues, then the CDM will tell you that, will give you a report saying, okay, look, there's a problem here, and then you can go in and make the changes. In terms of your report print variables are actually used to generate your report. So your reports, your Excel tables will not print without your #S and your #RS and #RE. RS stands for report start, and RE is report end. So you put it around your table so that when you go to print it, it actually shows up. But without that label, it won't show up at all. And then finally, we've got these two classes of variables, and they're called image variables. So with this, it actually brings an image into your Word or your PDF output. So that is called image range start and image range end. I don't know if that answers your question, but that is what these class of variables are. And they're normally variables that you use within your report to automate your report.
Thank you, Linda. And if anybody has any further questions, or if that was not sufficient, then I believe that, Ian, you'll show the email addresses of both yourself and Linda at the end of the presentation.
Yeah, wonderful. And so our time, I think we're a couple of minutes past our time, and we recognize that many of you have other things to go to. If there are other questions, then you can certainly send them in to us, and we're happy to follow up with you directly. I wanted to mention, many of you may perhaps be going down to Vision. And if you are, we would love to see you down there. We are down at Vision. We have a pod there where we can touch base with you and interact with FSR and CDM directly. But I also wanted to really highlight for you a user group. We are running a user group session down at Vision. If you are going to be down at Vision, this is your must-attend event. It's a Monday evening, May 20th from 6 to 8 p.m. And it's specifically only for existing clients and users of Clarity for budgeting and forecasting for FSR or for CDM. And we will have IBM representatives there and all of your peers there with an opportunity for really what a user group is, a peer-to-peer interaction. And we're happy to say it will also be a reception, so we'll have some food there for you as well. There is registration available, and we'll be sure that you all have access to the registration link to register for that user group, and would love to see you there. And so with that, we will conclude our webinar. You can email any of us, reach us at info@clearinsight.ca, and their phone number to reach us, and our webpage, Facebook, and there is a LinkedIn user group there as well that we'd be happy to have you join. So thank you very much, everybody, for your time, and we hope that you have found this time of tremendous value to you, and we look forward to connecting with you in the future. Thank you very much, and bye for now.
The organizer